What's going on, Workforce? Brian here for Work to Game, and today we're talking about Scholar. So we're going to be presenting this like we're presenting our other guides for Stormblood, breaking them out into many different videos. That way, ideally, you're getting the focus and the content that you're specifically looking for. And with that, let's just go ahead and do this thing. From a skill perspective, a Scholar is a very interesting job to play. You've got your healing capacity, and you also have your damage dealing capacity. This is because Scholar shares the base class with Summoner, which is Arcanist. So we've got several skills to go over. I'm going to highlight just a few from the Arcanist itself, and then we're going to be focusing on the Scholar specific actions. Namely, we've got Physic and Aether Flow, are two key principal carryovers from the Arcanist. Physic is going to be your main healing spell. It's got a cure potency of 400 and it's going to cost you 600 MP. And Aether Flow, which is going to generally restore 10% of your maximum MP and then grant you Aether Flow stacks. This is a core mechanic because several job abilities run off of this Aether Flow. Outside of Resurrection and of those actions, Rouse is going to be a huge pet ability. Scholars, just like Summoners, are a pet class. They have a fairy that's going to continue to heal for you. Rouse gives that fairy an additional 40% buff, as well as removing their ability to be stunned, slept, bind, or heavied. But let's talk about the job. Eloquium is a shielding ability, so it's going to cure with a cure potency of 300, much less than Physic, but this is going to apply a shield on the target, which is going to nullify any kind of incoming damage. So it's typically 1 for 1. So if you heal for 300, you put a 300 shield on. However, if you do a critical HP restore, you're going to see a double on that. So if you hit a crit for 400, you're going to see a shield for 800. This is very powerful. And there's going to be some other skills that we're going to talk about here in a minute that help add on to that. But you can see from an MP cost, this is 1800. So you're not going to want to be casting Eloquium all the time. You're still going to be relying heavily on Physic, more so, but this is a great spell because the Scholar is still all about damage mitigation. So Succor is going to be your AoE healing ability, but this also applies that healing shield on your target, so you're going to nullify damage. Now, it's not as potent with 150 potency for this cure, but it is still powerful, especially because you can get your whole party. As a Scholar, I'd recommend starting all your boss fights with this already applied to your targets because that's just going to save you time that you need to heal later and allow you to focus in on doing damage. It is important to note that this effect cannot be stacked with Nocturnal Sect, which is the shielding stance of the Astrologian. So if you do have an Astrologian in your party, hopefully you guys are in sync, and that way they're using a hot instead of a shield, and that way you can focus in on your shields. So Sacred Soil is an ability it's going to use when your Aether Flow stacks. Now this is really great because it's going to basically give them a 10% reduction in damage. Now it says they will only suffer 90% of the damage which is inflicted, so okay, 10%. Now, there is a 20% chance that your next Succor is not going to cost you any MP. So there is an added benefit to this, but you're going to have to kind of balance this with your Aether Flow stacks. There might be something more important you want to hold on to it for, but I'm going to leave that up to you. Again, this is a shield on the ground, which is quite useful. Be sure to check out our controller layout guide and we'll talk more detail about that in that video. Now, Lustrate is a great ability. It's got a recast of 1 second. It's an insta-cast ability and it's got a cure potency of 600. It allows you to get your target's HP up really quickly. However, again, this is going to use an Aether Flow stack. So this kind of ends up being your healing ability where you really need to pop out some cures real fast because you can pop off 3 of these all within the span of 1 global cooldown. If you need more AoE healing capacity, Indomitability does that for you. It's got a cure potency of 400, which is much bigger than your Succor at 150. Again, Succor does that shield, so you could kind of almost think of it as like a 300 potency because you're also preventing damage, but this is still more powerful than all of that. And just like Lustrate and Sacred Soil, this is going to use one of your Aether Flow stacks. So just keep that in mind. And it also has a cooldown of 30 seconds, so you can't pop these off like you can Lustrate. Broil is a great ability that gives you a lot more damage potency. You can see that here it is a potency of 190. It's got an MP cost of 720, which is just a little bit more than your main cure. This is going to end up replacing Ruin 2 as your main hitting attack, but Ruin 2 still is going to be useful because it is instacast. This is not an instacast ability. Deployment Tactics is a great ability. Now it interacts with Eloquium and applies that shield to an area of effect around the target in question. It will spread Galvanize, which is the effect of Eloquium, and Eye for an Eye to nearby targets that are hit within the radius. It's important to note that Eye for an Eye is now a cross-roll ability, so if you don't take that and you haven't applied it, you're not getting the maximum amount of function from deployment tactics. But it is up to you. It is very handy, especially with any kind of stacking mechanics, to be able to apply this to the target, spread it to all the targets around, and watch as they really don't suffer any damage. You can consider yourself a clutch healer sometimes when that saves the raid. Emergency Tactics translates Alloquium into a more powerful cure. So instead of applying a shield, it is now going to take what would have been the shield, and apply it as a cure instead. So just making up some numbers as an example for you, if you did a 400 point cure, instead of having that 400 cure and then that 400 shield, you will now do an 800 cure. Same thing applies that if you did a 4,000 point cure, instead of a 4,000 cure and a 4,000 shield, it is now 8,000. This allows you to really get a target up quickly, and when you couple this with Illustrate, you have a lot of functionality with getting those abilities out. Now, it's important to note this also has a recast of 30 seconds, so keep that in mind. You don't necessarily need to use it all the time. It's emergency tactics for a reason. Now, your level 60 ability, Dissipation, is one that I rarely use, and hopefully you'll never need it. What it does is it sacrifices your pet to give you a full Aether Flow stack and increase your cure potency by 20%. However, you cannot summon a new pet while under this effect. The effect will last for 30 seconds, so hopefully you won't ever need it, but it's good to have in my opinion. Now, I'm just going to call this ability Exo because I don't think I can pronounce the full name of it. But what this does is this is kind of pre-curing. So Scholar focuses on damage mitigation, about preventing damage. This is a great ability. It's going to use one of your Aether Flow stacks, but it's going to immediately grant a cure to that target when their HP falls below 50%. And you can see the potency of it being 650. When you compare that to Lustrate, it is a much more powerful cure. I would recommend using this and applying this to the target when you have Aether Flow ready to be used and you have a remaining stack of Aether Flow on you. No point in not applying this because this still has a 60-second cooldown, which times really well with your Aether Flow. Broil 2 is the increased version of Broil. You can see the potency increase from 190 to 230, and this is again going to be that big punch. And the fact that it's going to automatically upgrade on your hotbar is just the best. Now, Chain Stratagem is your raid utility. This is going to increase the rate in which your target is going to take critical hits. This is effectively buffing your party to be able to do more critical damage. And so this has got a 120-second recast time. I'd recommend trying to keep this up on the boss whenever it's up. This is a great ability for bosses, and this is a great ability for any pool. 120 seconds is actually going to fly by pretty quickly, so you can get this off on multiple pools and usually once or twice on the boss that you're encountering. Aither Pact is your level 70 ability. This is going to order your pet to use Fey Union. Now, Fey Union is a 480 point potency cure that's going to continue to heal your target and use your fairy gauge. All of those Aether Flow abilities are continually used to increase your Aether Flow gauge, and then when it fills up, you can expend it so that your fairy is channeling a cure to your particular target. This is fantastic because it is a healing over time ability, and it's quite powerful. Now, you can't talk about Scholar without talking about the pet abilities. You have Embrace, which is just their standard 250 potency cure. This has a cast time of 2 seconds and a recast time of 3 seconds. Whether your pet is in automatic attack or in obey mode, this is going to continue to be fired off automatically. Whispering Dawn is their AoE. It's got a cure potency of 100 and it's going to last for 21 seconds. You want to couple this with Rouse. That additional 40% boost turns this into 140 point hot and lasting for 21 seconds. That is 7 ticks of 140 potency. It is great. It adds to your utility when you look at Indomitability and with Succor. So you have a lot of function when you couple that with your pet. Fey Covenant is going to increase your magic defense for yourself and nearby enemies by 20%. This is a great little magic defense buff. So just keep that in mind as a way to apply 20% extra damage mitigation during a magic phase. Fey Illumination is going to increase your spell-based HP restoration of self and nearby party members by 10%. So this is really great, especially in 8-man content with you and the other healer. You're going to give yourself an extra 10% boost to your healing ability. And any self-heals that any of your party members might have would also apply to this, but most likely it's going to benefit you and another healer. So the Scholar has two pets. We first covered Eos. For Celine, which is your other pet, you have Embrace, which is your other cure. Silent Dusk, 40% recast, going to silence your target. This can be really great and help save you a lot of pain. Now, it will only be used if Obey is active, otherwise Celine will use it on her own at her own discretion. Bay Caress is going to remove a negative effect from your target. If you don't take Insuna as a cross-roll ability, then you still have a pet that can remove that at your discretion or at theirs. And then finally, Fey Wind. 60-second recast, but this is going to basically, this is haste if you kind of look at it that way. It's going to reduce weapon skill cast time, recast time for spells, and auto attack as well. So you're going to see a increase of 3% across the board. Not amazing, but not bad either way. So this concludes our abilities overview. Please be sure to check out our other guides regarding the various content, layout, and just general opinions of the Scholar. We thank you so much for watching this video. This has been Brian for Work to Game. We hope to see you in our next, but until then, we hope you have a fantastic week. Take care.
Hey guys, Chris here. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see our next video, go ahead and click right there. If you'd like to see our vlog, click down below. The subscribe button should be right below me here, and you should see all of our contact information. Have a great day, and we will see you next time.